Okay, this video is about rendering, and I'm going to call it Rendering 101. So this is like bare bones, basic, kind of the menu defined, and I'll do a render or two, and then I'm going to do subsequent videos, uh, rendering 102, 103, maybe 201. We'll see if we get up to 400 level courses here soon. Okay, so the builder's panel is right here, and always to the right of that is the render tab. So let's go over this real quick and see what we got. So under render, the first button here is materials. And under materials, we have gems. Okay, so there they are. And we have metals. Now under metals, we have a pull down and we have bead blast. Let's click that. So there it's kind of that frosted bead blasty look. Hammer finish, all right, polished, sandblast, and satin. All right, so I'm going to stick with polished for this video. Maybe we'll do one. We'll see if we have time for a quick, maybe we'll do sandblast or something. Okay, next over is ground planes. Okay, and these are ground plane materials. And the same kind of feel. We have gloss, we have matte, and mirror. Okay, so there's that. I don't know, maybe we'll do gloss. We'll see what we do. Next one over is plastics. You can use it as enamels, or if you want a plastic ring, or whatever you want to use it for. You can use these for ground planes too if you want to. Fabrics, I have one. Got to do more. Going to do some fabrics, some more linens, maybe some cloth of some sort, silk maybe, who knows. Need to do more of those. We've got an okay selection of wood grains. Okay, so these are kind of fun. Got some stones or rocks or concrete. Those I kind of went crazy with those for a short minute, and there's no miscellaneous right now. There will be, and emitters is a whole nother conversation. There will be an emitters materials, and emitters are objects that emit light. So you can make custom light shapes with objects that glow. Maybe we should call it glow stick builder. I don't know. Okay, the next button over are environments. And so the environments are what light the scene. Okay, you can use physical lighting. I'm not going to do that. And what I mean by that is you run the spotlight command or the rectangular light command or whatever. But for the most part, we light a scene with what's called an HDR image, okay, HDRI, which is high dynamic range image. And basically, it's a scene or an image that's wrapped around the inside of the globe, and that object reflects, and bright spots in that image end up giving off like light, and dark spots don't. Okay, so it's an image that's wrapped around the scene, and you can change the intensity of the light that's given off from that scene. And you can also rotate that scene about the world to get the light to come from different places. We'll see if, I don't know that we'll do a bunch of that in this video. I just want to get through what's going on. And so let's go ahead and go to the next one, which is options, okay? The first thing you'll notice in options is what the size of the render is, and this is in pixels, so 800 by 600. There's a list here, okay? And you can type your own, so if you're rendering a ring, maybe you want a square format, so you could type 700 by 700, and that's what it will render at, okay? Save renders to the current project. That does exactly what it's saying. Every time you do a render, if you let it finish, it will save that into the, in this case, my Jewel Beetle project's demo models, Wherever that folder is on the hard drive, you will start to see renders in that folder. I don't prefer that because when I do a render, I might do it 5 times before I'm happy with it. Sometimes not, but I might be playing around and then it's dropping renders in that folder. Now, if it's a job and it's for, your customer, then it's real handy because you don't have to even think about saving the render. It's going to dump them over there. Render all 4 views and save as one image. I think that pretty much sums it up. We'll give that a shot here at some point. There's the file name and the file type for that. And then the solver, that's a whole nother conversation. There's Saturn versus Atlas. This is what Bella, the render engine that we have partnered with, that's what does the ray tracing and the dispersion and all the stuff. That's the brain that it thinks with. Saturn's a little faster than Atlas, so we use that one. And then we'll talk about target noise and so on. You balance the target noise versus the time limit of the render, and threads. Threads simply means how many of your processor's threads is Bella using when it renders, and setting this at -1. Okay, so here you can see if we pause over here, it'll tell you in that, but -1 says use all the threads for rendering except for one, and that way you can click around and check your email, or you'll have a thread left so your computer can think instead of using them all. But if you put -2, it'll use all the threads, and you won't have much luck clicking around and doing much because your computer will be really busy. Okay. Then we have props where we have cloth that you can put like a ring around it, so the cloth is growing through there. We have a couple sweep backgrounds like what you'd use in photography. Ring box, ring display. Here's a mandrel. That's kind of fun. I did a render the other day with a mandrel. And then the animation button I will not get to in this video. I can tell you, even if we click on this, in maybe not the next update, but the next, this is all redesigned and laid out differently. It's a bit more it's a lot more straightforward in my mind, but this would get you some animations, but I'm not going to cover that till the new menu's in. It wouldn't make any sense to. So here we go. The first thing that I want to make sure that everybody knows is, I'm going to go ahead and load an object here. You do not have to cut seats in metal for a gem to render correctly. Some render engines require that the gem object does not intersect other objects like metal. Okay, so if we turn off this layer, you can see that I don't have any seat cut for this whatsoever. And now let's get into assigning some materials and producing a render. So since I'm here under materials, I'll go ahead and make both of these a diamond, and you can assign the material to the object one of 2 ways. The first way, using the buttons, is, okay, I have those selected, I have diamond selected, then I hit apply to objects, okay? And you get a toast down there that says diamond is applied to 2 objects. Those little messages in the programming world are called toasts, I guess. I like toast. Okay, the other way that you can apply, let's go over to metal, and we're in polished, and I'll select this, and I'll go ahead and just do yellow gold 18. You double click it, and if you double click, you can see that yellow gold 18K was applied to one object. Ta-da! That's faster, so I usually click, double click, select it, double click. Okay, I'm going to leave the default scene or environment is called default. Shocker. So I'm just gonna leave that. We'll play around with another one. And so I'm gonna come over to options, and I'm going to check show safe frame. Now, what that does is that says, hey, you're rendering at 700 by 700, and now you can see, oh, what if my scene was here and I didn't have this on? You're like, oh, well, this is a rectangular format, but we're rendering in square. So you can turn that on and then fix up your scene so that you get a good render the first time instead of it cutting off the edge of the render, because that's what you're going to get. I'm also going to have show ground plane on. So if that's off, we check that on. This is an infinite ground plane. In other words, it's just a virtual ground plane that Bella is going to put in here, and it's going to look at the very bottom object, and it's going to align to that face, and it'll shoot on out into infinity. And someone said and beyond, but okay, so let's go back to materials. Let's go to ground planes, and we're on gloss, and I'm going to go ahead and double click dark gray, and that assigned that to the ground plane. All right, now we'll get to apply to objects or apply to ground plane, but here it assigned it to the ground plane. And just so you know, if you mouse over a toast when it's active, it will stay there because we figure, oh, they wanted to read this, it shouldn't go away. If you're done with it, you just hit the X. If you don't mouse over it, they go away on their own. All right. I say, enough talking, more rendering. I'll go ahead and stay here. Some of the time I'll be pausing, but we'll let this render go. So down in the lower left, you can see that the time elapsed is here, and the progress of the render is here, okay? And over here, we're rendering at 700 by 700, and I'm zoomed in 1:1, so this is what you see is what you get. Okay, so now it's post-processing, it's doing its thing, and that was 34 seconds. Now, let's talk a minute about denoising. Okay, so whenever you do a render, depending on how long you give the render and what settings you have for how high the quality is of the render, you may want to sacrifice time, okay, or shorten the time versus how smooth the render is. And one trick that a lot of render engines do is called denoise. And so let's talk about that real quick. Even though this is a 101 level render, we might as well get this out of the way. Number one, over here we have, depending on how big this window is, those will be different. We have post effects, we have tone mapping. I'm not going to get into that in this video. We have final pass, not going to get into that one either. But over here you can see we have denoise. These are part of the Rhino functionality. So we have this denoise, and then we have NVIDIA denoise. Now, if you have an AMD card, you probably won't see this, but this one really doesn't do anything anyway, so you can click it if you want, but I don't recommend running any of these. If you're going to use denoiser, then over here is where you should click it, right here. Okay? This is the Bella denoiser, so this is the one we want to use. Well, let's take a look at what we got. So I'm going to zoom in here, and you'll notice that this render is, very smooth. There's not a lot of static or noise or pixelization going on here. And let's look at, I can tell you because I've already done this render, let's look at this reflection right here. Okay, it's very smooth. Everything's smoothed out pretty good, but we still have decent clarity in the video, but not a lot of noise. Well, I'm going to leave this render because you can have multiple render windows. I'm going to leave this one here, and I'm simply going to come over here to denoise and turn that off, and let's hit render. Okay, so Bella's doing its thing. We call this baking the render, where it starts out really blurry and it bakes it or gets it a little more, a little more, a little more. And it's being controlled how long the render is by these settings here. So maybe I'll come over and talk about this just for a moment. But so far what we've done, and I'll just keep chatting here while it's rendering, but so far we've assigned ground plane, assigned materials, picked resolutions, and so now this render, it was a second faster, so I guess that's probably how long the denoise takes, is probably not even a second. But let's zoom in. Okay, a little more choppy here, okay? A little more noise. There's no other word that I can use. You could use the word static. And I don't know if by the time this video is compressed and on YouTube or wherever you're watching it, that this is showing up or not, but you can see in this shadow and in here, there's noise. You can see varying pixels. Let's come back over here and zoom in, and you don't see the same, let me get that right up there. There we go. You don't see the same noise in there. That's what denoiser does. And you can have a faster, there's a balance. There's how fast the render is as to how much noise it's going to put in there. And then denoise can make the image softer, and it's therefore not as sharp and not as desirable. But I tell you, for the most part, everything that I do, I run this at 10. I run denoiser, and I'm pretty happy with it. Some people, if you're if you want a more pure render, if you will, well, the target noise of 10 says I'm going to let it have like the amount of 10 noise, like that's some noise, okay? If I take this down to 5 or 6 or 7, let's go 5, which I don't very often go down that low. I mean, if you go down to 1, you're going to be waiting a long time, but there won't be much noise in the image. But now we've got denoise off. We're at 5, and I'll go ahead and hit render. And I'll probably hit pause on this and come back when it's done. Okay, we're back, and that render took noticeably longer. So at 5, that was a minute and a half. So it added a minute to the render. But let's take a look. So denoise is off. Let's zoom in here, and it's smooth like the first denoised one, and there's not much noise in here. Maybe some in the dark shadow here. So if again you want to compare here, this is the denoised one. So there is a little bit of noise, but without denoiser on this one, the gem is the diamond is pretty sharp. So let's take a look there, and then let's zoom in one level here. You know, to me, it's not enough sharp to not just have a 30-second render and denoise it. That's my stance on that. You know, is it sharper? Probably, and it might have a little more detail in it. But all things said and done, that's kind of my high level introduction to denoising and render time and so on. So target noise of 10. If you set a time, you run the risk of, let's say you're doing a larger render than 700 by 700. Maybe you're doing a 12 or a 1920 by 1080, a 1080p render. If you're like, hey, you know, I need it in 3 minutes. Well, that's fine, but if it can't get to this noise level by 3 minutes, it's gonna stop the render at 3 minutes, and it might be kind of noisy. So I don't usually limit the time. I go for target noise. So there you go. Okay, let's go ahead and render something else. So I thought it would be fun. Let's go ahead. I'm going to turn off show frame just because it bugs me till I'm ready, because it'll, no matter what viewport you're on, it'll show that, and so it gets a little old sometimes. Let's go ahead and bring this ring out, and I thought it would be fun to kind of prep a ring for rendering, if you will. So I'm going to get rid of these prongs here, and at some point in Joule Beetle, at the time I'm doing this video, we don't have it, but we plan on having the ability to fold this prong over so it looks set when you go to render it. We don't have that yet, so it's not real hard to do manually. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select, I'm actually going to sub-select. Like here, if I just left click on this, it selects it. Sub-select is holding down Shift and Control on the keyboard, and then when you pick something, it sub-selects or selects the sub part, and then you can hit delete. So let me undo that. You can also hold down Control. Oh, come on. So we can do a crossing selection where I hold down Control and Shift and then go here, and then it'll pick that top part, and then I can hit delete. So then what I like to do is go over to Tools and to Profile Cap and select the profile curve or the edge of a surface, and you can, you know, kind of make this as domey or whatever as you want. If you pull this up kind of taller, you can get kind of that claw prong look. So let me, there we go. And yeah, I'll hit there. Then I'll select this and hit J for join and hit enter. And then if you hit Control F1, I'm sure a lot of people know this one, but you never know. Control F1 will mirror this left to right, and then I'll select this one, and then Control F2 will send it front to back. So there we go. And then I'm going to select these four, hold down Shift and pick those, and then we'll go over to Transform and Cage Edit. I'm going to do a bounding box, which is going to put a box around these four. I'm going to do world coordinates, so enter. And then I have this set up already, but it's there's 4 dots in the X, 4 dots or ticks in the Y, and then I have 6 selected for the top or the Z, and that just gives me a little more control than 4. So I'll hit enter and then enter, and there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And otherwise there's 4 and 4. All right. So I'm going to pick just this window of the top section. And then if we come over here and go to the little square here, which is move planar, if you hold down Shift, as you can see, it'll do 2D scale. So I'm going to hold down Shift, and then I'm going to go towards the center, and that will start to pull these in. Okay, that was a lot of fun, so let's do that some more. All right, and then I'm going to grab the top 2 rows and kind of pull that down. And you can get carried away here if you want. You could pick just the outside ones right here and move those up and kind of pull those back up so they're not as, and then you could pull like you could do this dot and this dot and this dot and this dot and pull those down, and that'll pull those little spiky dudes in a little more. But there is you know, if I wasn't talking so much and whatever, that wouldn't have taken very long. And let's go ahead and assign some materials here. So we'll go right click here and here, and we'll go to materials and metal and down to white gold here. We can double click. White T8 gold applied to 70 objects. And then let's make this a ruby, I vote. So we'll double click that, ruby applied to one object, and then we'll right click these other, the melee, and double click diamond, and that is assigned to 26 images. We'll come over here to options, show safe frame. Let's go ahead and do this and get that all set up however we want. We'll come over to, we'll leave it on dark gray and show ground plane is on. And so denoise is on. Let's hit render. And I'll go ahead and I don't have any good jokes or anything. I was going to say I'll entertain everybody while this renders so that we can see it start to bake it. And let's go ahead and, yeah, we'll let it finish. This is probably going to be a sub 30-second render because when it gets up around here, it finishes really quick. So once you're past halfway, you're getting closer on a quick render. 26 seconds. We've got a little highlight here. That's just the environment showing on the scene. Our diamonds, this is a pretty good exposure. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is exposure. These got a little knifey on me. I could have pulled them down in more. You know, I shouldn't have had them as domey as, although, you know, I do see this look a fair amount on jewelry, especially on colored stones. Okay, without regard to that, this is a pretty good exposure. The diamonds are light. They're not too light. They're not blown out or, you know, all white. There's some contrast in them. So yeah, so not a bad render. Let's talk about environments though. So that is the default environment. So it's pretty predictable. It's pretty gray. There's no color in it. Okay. Here you can see this environment is pretty blue. Okay, so let's just try some of these. So I'm going to select this and hit apply. Okay, cloudy sky applied. All right, and then let's just, without doing anything else, let's hit render. So here we go, and you can tell there's blue in that scene for sure, right? And you can see you know, the image that is being projected around the environment, it's got some clouds in it, that image, okay? That's why it's called cloudy sky, because it is. And you can see that this being a darker HDRI image, it needs more light to get these diamonds to pop, and the metal for that matter. So we might come up here and go 1.3 intensity, okay? Now, I'm not going to worry about, this is what we're applying the HDR image to. We're applying it to the 360 background and the skylight, and so that is typical setup here. You'll notice there's a show ground plane button here as well as options. It's just for ease of turning on and off. But with this, I don't know, I'm going to stop that one, and I might even go up to 1.5 and hit render. You may notice that as I'm doing this, to stop the render, you could hit the stop button and leave the viewport or the render window, or you can just close it. The very first time you do that, you may get a message saying, hey, do you want to stop the render when you close this every time? And you would just say, yeah, don't show me that again, and do it every time. And the exposure on this, I would say, is real good. We've got some play in the diamonds. We've got good good metal color. We've got a nice table reflection, so that sometimes is desirable. And there you go. So you can play around with the environments. I'm going to do that in the next video, is show how to control the environments a little more. But there's another render. I guess, let's see, 30, I'll do one more. So let's go ahead and I'm going to hit pause and get a different ring out here. Okay, so here's another ring. I thought it would be fun to, I'm not going to, we can bend over the prongs or not. I'm not too worried about it. These I think are just, yeah, they're just kind of in there. So sometimes what I also will do is I'll just grab this and I'm going to hold down Control. Hey. Sorry, I'm not going to hold down Control. I went back to Rhino 7 in my head. I'm going to double click and that way I can rotate the gumball so that it lines up with, double click that. Now I have the gumball more lined up with the prong, and I'm just going to cheat and move it down. I don't think that'll show up anywhere else. So then Control F1 over here, Control F2. Again, we don't have to cut any seats, but the prong is shorter. Kind of looks like it's set. It's close enough for me. And then what I'm going to do is, this is all on Metal 1. I'm going to come in here to this floor, and I'm going to hold down Control and Shift, and I'm going to sub-select this floor, and it's in sections, okay? And then I need to come over to Solid and go to Extract, Surface, and then I can put that on this layer. Yay. Let's come over here and do the same thing. Control and Shift, click here. For some reason, this one is all joined, but I need to extract and put that on that layer. So there we go. There's another cool thing that we can do. A lot of renders, I like to set the ring down because this isn't super realistic. I mean, this one would maybe stand up, but we have a function under Tools. I'm going to go ahead and select the whole ring here. And it's right here in Tools. It's called Lay Down Ring. So we click that and hit Enter, and then it lays the ring down. Go figure. How did we come up with the name of that tool? Okay, the other thing that we can do is that infinite ground plane. Let's say we wanted to do kind of a cool artsy, craftsy view here. That infinite ground plane does shoot out, but eventually it'll hit the horizon, and I want to control what the scene is looking at, or how it's looking. So I don't want to use the ground plane. Okay, so I'm going to turn that off, and I'm going to go to Props, and I'm going to load this oval sweep. So I'm going to click on this and then say Import, and it will import that object. And that is it's like in a photography studio, they have those infinite backgrounds, and it's called a sweep or a cyc sometimes in photography. So that's what this is. And when we zoom in and render at a low angle, okay, now we got to be careful because we can see the edge here. So all I have to do is either move the ring or move the background. And then when we come back, there's what I see. Okay, and then we can come in here and go, okay, all this metal is polished and it's yellow gold. Double click, da-da-da-da-da. Okay, and then what I like to use is on this, and as a matter of fact, we'll render so we see more of that. Oh, the other thing you can do too is rotate this. That's legal. So now, as long as I'm in this safe frame, I'm okay. And maybe we come over here and pick. Let's see. No, I'm not going to go that big. Let's go 800 by 600. Okay. Um, so that way we kind of get more of the ring that way, because this is more of a horizontal aspect ratio. All right. Now let's come back and right click this, and we'll come over to metals, and let's go to sandblast, and let's have it so it's antiqued in there, or um, that's what I hear a lot of people call it, maybe. Um, so we'll double click that, and we'll apply this dark textured material to there. And then I vote, let's see, yellow, gold. Man, I've been in my green phase lately, so I'm going to do a green tourmaline. So double click that. And then the melee is going to be diamond. Double click that. And we still are on that environment that was cloudy sky. Let's try a different one. I'm going to try this. Well, here, I'll tell you what. Let's render it real quick. I may not let it finish. No, I think this went back to default. Let's see, but I didn't assign anything to the background, which is kind of fun. No, this is the cloudy sky. You can kind of tell with the blue in this. So let's stop that, and I'm gonna pick. That was just, there was no material on there, so it was white, which is fine. But otherwise, if we go here and go here, I'm going to pick something warmer for this render. So I'm going to do mocha gloss. So click here. Now, if you double click this, it's going to say, double click, maybe that got fixed. It used to, when you double click this, it would apply it to the ground plane. Because this is a ground plane, it would do it to the infinite. The ground plane infinite is off, which you can see here. And I asked Jason if we could do it so that, hey, all right, he did it. Thank you, sir. If you don't have anything, or if you have something selected and you double click this, we assume you want it on there. If nothing is selected and you double click this, then it applies it to the ground plane. Sorry, it's the little things. Okay, and then I'm going to come back over to, hopefully all my ranting there, or my babbling, this item selected, double click ground plane, assigns it to the object. Nothing selected, double click this, assigns it to the ground plane, which is the infinite one, which is the same as hitting this button or this button. But now you can double click in here. Okay, I think I drove that home. Let's see. Let's go to warm. So I'm going to double click warm windows, because what's better than cold windows? Warm windows. And let's render. So there we have a glossy background. Okay. It is a little distracting. This is the light going in here. We have some cool crown facet reflections. Our diamonds are picking up some nice table reflections. This might be one step too bright, but sometimes you have to let it bake, if you will, longer than you think, and it'll start to unveil the detail that's going to be in these diamonds, and you can see it coming. And so we're right on the edge of this being the proper exposure. And we have, the gloss is really fun with this reflection here. It's not a mirror. It starts to dissolve as it gets further out. But I think all things considered, and sorry if you really wanted to see that finish, you can do it too though after you watch this video. I'm going to go to matte and go back to Mocha and double click that. So Mocha was applied to that. And now let's see what we get. And I'm coming up on 40 minutes. I'm 40 minutes into this. This is going to be it for this. Yeah. So there, less detail in the background, if you will. Kind of highlights the ring a little more, in my opinion. You know, this is just like a matte finish, like I say. So not as much competing with the render. But I'll tell you, those warm windows, it's nice for lighting the diamonds because there's some nice highlights here. And then on this gold, it really works well. Because you can see as this is rendering, you know, you can see the tonality of that environment is a lot warmer than some of these cool gray ones, you know. So that's all I have to say about that. So I'm gonna hit pause here for. Okay, and the render's done. Looks good to me. It was 1 minute 16 seconds. Not, you know, not the end of the world. You could, you don't have to sit and watch it. If yours is taking a lot longer, it's time for a faster computer. I will say that we're using the CPU, so the computer itself, not the GPU, which is the video card. We're using the CPU, so mine's pretty quick, but it is just an i5, although it's a really quick one. Let me see here. So here you go. i5, that's me. It's a Intel 13th gen, 3.5 gigahertz, and I'm running 64 gig of RAM because it's no fun if you do something and run out. And Windows 11 Pro, so nothing else really to see here. All right, so there's rendering 101, how to get a render in that many easy steps. All right, thanks.